Welcome everybody, I'm Sally England. I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar in which we're going to look at the membership and qualification changes in the Chartered IIA and hear how a Chartered Head of Internal Audit has progressed to the very top as an advisor to the Executive Board. The webinar will help you to navigate the changes and seize the opportunity to further develop your teams. Thank you all for attending. Before we begin, please remember that if any time you have questions for me or our speakers, please submit them using the Q&A function on your screen, and we'll cover those questions at the end of the presentation. Just a note to say we'll be recording this session, and you'll receive the recording shortly after the session for your reference. By way of introduction, I'm the Director of Hayes Audit, Risk and Compliance Specialism, which provides recruitment support and consultancy to hundreds of internal audit functions across the UK. For over 50 years, Hayes has been finding and matching the best internal audit professionals to organisations and businesses. We also produce a range of reports and guides to advise your recruitment decisions, help you benchmark your salary and benefits offerings, and attract and retain the best talent, along with webinars such as this to keep you up to date with the latest trends and developments across the profession. We're lucky to be joined today by Jan Olivier and Phil Gray from the Chartered IIA. We'll be discussing changes and trends in the profession, some recent changes to the structures and the qualifications that the IIA offers, and what membership means. We're also joined by Julie Goodrum. Julie is the Head of Internal Audit and Risk Management at John Lewis Partnership. She joined the John Lewis Partnership 3 years ago after 12 years in practice with EY, working with FTSE 100 multinationals to transform and lead audit, risk, programme, change and governance functions across a range of industries in both the private and the public sectors. Julie's role at John Lewis Partnership incorporates both Waitrose and John Lewis brands and covers business-wide internal audit and both enterprise and operational risk management. Julie will offer insights into her own career as a Chartered IIA, the value of professionalism and the value of qualifications for yourself and for your team. I'm going to hand you over now to Phil and Jan to discuss how the profession is changing and how the qualifications are keeping up.
Thank you very much, Sally, and good morning, everybody. Thanks very much, Sally, for hosting this webinar for us. It gives us a great opportunity to talk about the profession and, in particular, our qualifications framework and hear some thoughts from Julie as well shortly. So we're going to just set the scene a little bit by talking very briefly about how the profession is changing. And then we'll run through our new qualifications framework, which has changed over the last few years, and we realised that when we did that, that there were likely to be some sort of confusion about what had changed and how it changed and so on. So hopefully in today's webinar we'll be able to kind of clarify exactly how the qualifications structure works, both at the certificate level and the Chartered Internal Auditor status. So just to set the scene, as I mentioned, you probably know as well as I do how much the profession has changed in recent years. Risk now is on everybody's agenda in some form or another. And very often it's the complexity of risk, the global context, consumerism, reputation, public confidence, all these things now feature much more in the risk landscape than they have done previously. Alongside that, we've got big changes in technology, things such as artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, all now much more intricate detail requiring specialist skills in order to understand how these things impact and how they affect the risk framework and so on. All of that put together means that expectations about what internal audit can bring to an organisation are changing also. Management and managers look to internal audit much more than they did. Boards now have risk much more centrally on their agenda. And so they need to know that internal audit is alongside them, that is able to give them the assurance that they need. And I know this sort of idea of internal audit being much more of a strategic partner to the board is something that Julie is going to talk about shortly. in terms of what that means for actual practicing internal auditors, there's now much more appreciation that soft skills is an important area. So not just technical competence, but how we communicate, how we build relationships, negotiation and influencing skills, all become very important part of the internal auditor's toolkit. And we've had all this very much in mind when we were looking at how we need to review our qualifications structure a couple of years ago, and in particular, what all this means for achieving chartered internal auditor status. So our objective today really is to try and explain what we have done in terms of the qualifications, how we see those qualifications meeting the future and current needs of businesses, and how it all hangs together, because I'm very conscious that there's quite a lot of confusion out there now about what the pathway to chartered status is, what's the difference between our old qualifications and the new ones, and how it all fits together. What does it mean in terms of adding value to you as a practitioner? And in particular, what does it mean for you as an individual for your career path? And I think one item of good news you will be interested to know is that the Institute did some research. We've done it as a sort of a tracking study for the last couple of years, actually. And what we find is that qualified internal auditors typically achieve an increase in salary of about 20,000 over unqualified peers. Now, you might say, well, we would say that, wouldn't we? And, these things are always kind of subject to, to question in some way. But nonetheless, we do see a clear trend that qualified internal auditors are perceived to add more value than unqualified. So something to whet your appetite and to think about. Let me hand over now to Jan Olivier, our learning manager, and he will explain the qualifications framework and how it all works together. Jan.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we have two qualifications. The first is the Certified Internal Auditor. Consists out of 3 parts. And these 3 parts are necessary for you to continue then to the next part, which is the Chartered Internal Auditor, where you also have to prove a little bit of professional experience and the type of skills that you would acquire within the workplace, and report that in a journal for you to be able to get your designation. The first slide is looking quickly at the duration. Now, it's very difficult to estimate this because the duration of both qualifications are very much structured about your own personal rate at which you would like to develop. There is a limit of 4 years within which you have to complete each of the 2 qualifications. And we have found that students or candidates tend to take between 1 year and a year and a half to go through the CIA qualification, and about 2 years or so, 18 months, to be able to finish the chartered paper. The reason for that is that the chartered paper is, of course, a lot more involved, and so it takes you a little bit longer to go through that. Just focusing quickly on the Certified Internal Auditor part now, the 3 basic principles, papers that you need to pass to be able to continue on. And just having a look at this syllabus, what it looks like, and what are the kind of content that you are going to encounter. Now, first, you just need to highlight that this is a very big qualification. At the moment, it's about 50,000 practitioners worldwide. The CIA is underpinned by our International Professional Practices Framework, which forms the basis of everything we do. With that, the CIA was, of course, developed by IIA Global, and therefore it has this tremendous international reach, and internationally is the benchmark for what we consider a professional practicing internal auditor. And as I mentioned, you need to pass the CIA to be able to continue to the Chartered Internal Auditor status. One word of warning, the CIA is done through multiple choice questions, but these multiple choice questions are extremely rigorous, so don't think that it is something that's akin to walking in a park. As I mentioned earlier, the first part of the syllabus works at the IPPF, International Professional Practices Framework, all the guidance we have, the standards, international standards, looking at risks and controls and so forth. So pretty much looking at the theory that underpins internal audit. The second paper then looks at the implementation of, or the application of the IPPF within a working environment. How are you going to conduct an internal audit? How are you going to manage it? How do you look at frauds and controls, and so forth. The third part of the paper looks at areas that tend to fall outside of internal audit, but are very important for the internal auditor to be familiar with. So, for example, here you are looking at areas such as financial management. You're going to look at areas like IT and the business continuity, risk management, and governance, and so forth. To support this, we are making use of a program called the IIA Learning System. This was developed by IIA Global. It is a very user-friendly tool consisting of both printed and an online environment, which gives you access to a massive variety of online exam questions, quizzes, and so forth. It is very, very detailed, the materials as well, and we found that it also is a very, very good tool for candidates who have even finished the CIA, as it is a very handy reference within the internal audit profession. Now, to support this, we offer a range of workshops, face-to-face and online events, both here in London and in Manchester, where we focus either on the syllabus in general, looking at true tuition workshops, to guide people through the syllabus in general, or we also do workshops focused on revision, how do you prepare for the exams, looking at the syllabus and looking at the exam technique and bringing everything together to help you prepare for the exam. We also offer a range of in-house workshops to our in-house customers, so we can customize the support in any way that you would prefer. Once you've completed the CIA, you then carry on to the Chartered Internal Audit Qualification. It consists out of 3 case studies, each dealing with an aspect of leadership, and then supported by a professional experience journal. Now, we consider the CMIA, is the designation associated with this, as the benchmark for a professional internal auditor. This is the high end, and this is how you are going to be able to assess your capabilities against other peers within your profession who may have other chartered qualifications. The syllabus dealing with the 3 areas of leadership, the first one being the overall talent management and communication skills, and focusing very much on the strategic side of internal audit. It goes on to the organizational leadership. Here you're looking again at strategy, but also focusing very much on insight, which is that key thing within internal audit at the moment, assurance, and most definitely also culture. That comes to the 3rd case study, which deals with ethical leadership, which of course is extremely important within the internal audit profession. This then also leads to a professional experience journal. We have a range of skills that you need to show that you have mastered that are not necessarily included within the work. The syllabus itself, these are things like you have to show your ability to host or to chair a meeting, to be able to present to your peers or to your employees, chair a meeting, and so forth. And these, you just need to provide some evidence that you have indeed done this. As with the CIA qualification, we have online support to assist CIA candidates working towards the exams. We have a range of mock exams that students can complete and then get feedback from their tutors in terms of how they are progressing and which are the strengths and weaknesses within their materials. We have a range of quizzes and podcasts and all the bells and whistles that you would expect from a modern online environment. Again, to support the students, we offer a range of workshops, mostly focused around the exams for the chartered papers. The chartered papers happen 3 times a year, sorry, and we offer the support to support that. If there are anybody interested in looking at the CMIA, the Chartered Qualification, and what it looks like, and just to get a feel for it, we currently have a free chartered taster that you can access, just to get a feel of the type of content and the type of interactivity that you can expect. So looking a little bit at the cost, I'm not going to spend too much time here because, as I said, it's being recorded, so you can access this later on, and all this information is also on our website. But to be able to enroll for the professional qualifications, you need to be a member of the Institute, so there's a bit of cost associated with that. At the moment, we are waiving the application fee, so you will save a little bit of money there. Then, depending on the route you take through the qualification, there is the materials that you will receive, there is the exam costs, and then also there's the revision workshop should you choose to attend one of those. It's of course not compulsory at all. Similar again for the chartered qualifications, there is an application fee. There's also the professional journal that needs to be assessed. And then there's also the online tuition that you can or choose to do or not, or you can choose to do a workshop or not. Like I said, all these prices are in detail on our website, so you are very welcome to have a look at that, or if you have any questions, to contact me, and I'll happy to go through all of this in detail with you to explain.
Yes, thank you, Jan. As Jan mentioned there, as part of our initiative with Hayes, we've got a promotional offer to waive our normal application fee, which is £127. So if you wish to join the Institute to take advantage of the qualifications, then you simply go onto our website and look for the Join Us button, and you'll see there's a code on the website where you can enter the code HAYES18. That is the end of our little section on the qualifications framework. I hope you found that useful. I'd now like to hand over to Julie Goodrum, who is the Head of Audit at the John Lewis Partnership. Julie.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil. And thanks to Sally, too, for the opportunity to talk today. So I thought I'd give a little bit of my background as a qualified with a chartered qualification, and then a little bit of background on my team and about our transformation. And then hopefully within that I should cover what the qualification means to both me personally, but also particularly as an employer, which is much more relevant now. So how did I end up here? I think that this is badged as how did I get to the top of internal audit. I'm not sure I'm at the top. I'm not sure whether you really know you're ever at the top. But I definitely didn't set out way back when I kind of left university to be an internal auditor or to be a head of internal audit. So I actually started my career as a consulting engineer and had my sights set on being a town planner or in the engineering space. But after a couple of years, 3 years, I decided that it wasn't for me, and it was particularly repetitive. And so I moved into professional services as a subject matter expert in transport. I actually never really did spend very much time in transport, but I moved into the risk and audit team as at EY, as somebody previously mentioned. And then I spent a lot of time sort of learning my trade essentially through internal audit and working on lots of very financially focused accounts, mostly large accounts, mostly FTSE 50, mostly international, and carved out a fairly niche role actually, working in either energy, chemicals and utilities companies or FMCG. And I think essentially kind of one of the things that I'd like to kind of share with you is that managing a network through a transport network, you can transfer those skills across different industries. And so whilst now I'm using those skills to manage products through a supply chain and auditing those supply chains, it can be applied to lots of different things, both in the FMCG world and in the energy and chemicals world. We're essentially pushing gas and electricity down pipes, but all the same content and skills and context and all of the same areas to look for in terms of risks and controls are directly transferable and can move across. So in terms of audit experience, I've gained that through professional services. I've spent 13 years in that space. But having done that, what I didn't have, I guess, is a professional qualification. So when I was looking forward in terms of career, I decided to take the Chartered Qualification in Internal Audit. And that's kind of been my licence to operate beyond then. But I think it's very much coupled with vast experience in lots of different spaces. And I guess the one thing that professional services does provide for you is a much more broader arena than actually just auditing most of the time. So it gives you the opportunity to manage accounts, to sell, to be a coach, to mentor, both kind of internally in your teams, but also to other heads of audit. And also develop the firm's methodology, you know, and to spend time kind of pushing the boundary on kind of the things that you do and the things that you can sell. So after that, I took a couple of years off, had a family, and I really do think that the qualification then was really supportive of them for me being able to move into industry. So in terms of personally, it's been very important for me. And if anyone's got any questions on that, I'm happy to take them afterwards. And then in terms of our team, so my team here, I'm the head of audit and risk, which is really common to have both sides of the coin, I like to say, in retail. It's pretty common practice, and as heads of audit and risk in retail, we get together quite a lot and debate this at length, actually. But I guess I've been in this role now for 3 years, and I think we've undergone significant transformation, both as an audit and risk team. So I operate a team that sits in the third line, which is the internal audit team, and I report to the chair of the audit committee on that. And I operate 2 teams in risks. One is enterprise risk management, which I think most people on the call will be familiar with, but also an operational risk management team, which looks after our business continuity framework and our crisis management framework here across the partnership. The great thing about that is it gives me a foot in each camp, and it gives me an operational insight, an insight at a very senior level, but also then the ability to be able to call it if it's not working from the other side. But from an executive perspective, they get that conversation in one place, which they find particularly helpful. So as I said, I inherited a team which had some really good capability, but not, I'd say, strength and depth. We were fairly disconnected from the business, and I think it's probably fair to say that our outputs were considered to be relatively low value because they were quite specific and focused in small areas rather than taking a much more holistic view. I would say that as a function, we had relatively low credibility in terms of the kind of senior suite across the business. So what do? I've spent a lot of time setting some clear direction for change and a remit to have much more insight and influence. And to do that, you must be involved in the business. So we set out a clear stakeholder plan and set on a journey to be a professional function. And my team consists of a whole variety of people and qualifications and experience. So I have chartered internal auditors in my team. I have mostly chartered accountants, and I have some excellent program and IT expertise. And it's really important, I think, for me to have the right mix. And the most important thing of all is that the people in my team must fit with the business. We must be able to engage. and draw on those soft skills to be able to influence, as I think Phil mentioned a little bit earlier on. So I guess in 2 years we've undergone significant transformation, and we've now really earned a seat at the exec table. I think it's fair to say that IIA is valued, particularly in terms of its insight and challenge. And our audit committees and our executive conversations are pretty crunchy these days, particularly around our risk areas and our control issues that we identified. Obviously, in this partnership, our customer is effectively our most important people, as you'd expect in retail, but also as a partnership, partners and our employees are incredibly important too. So it's an interesting dynamic when we get into some of those issues. And I think we have some real insight into our decision making. And I think one of the interesting things is that I do reflect quite often actually with a number of people that the role that audit has to play is quite unique in the sense that we have the opportunity to look across every aspect of the business. So I was kind of reflecting before this call to think about the kind of conversations that I'd had over the last 2 days actually, and I thought I'd just give you a flavour. So I've been talking and waxing lyrical on our approach to Brexit, and particularly through our supply chain and what we were doing about customs and all the potential risks and challenges around that. We've talked about pensions in detail. We've looked at cyber security. We've looked at the super interesting GDPR that I'm sure is on all of your plates too. We've had some in-depth discussions about our regulatory compliance framework, our internal controls framework, changes to strategy, and things that specifically affect our brand. So it gives us a very broad and varied remit, and it's one that's an opinion that is valued by the exec. So in terms of just thinking about the qualification, so I'll just move on my slides. Give me 2 seconds. So I think the slides here set out essentially what I was going to say, but I think really the qualification gives, for me, it gives you a known and understood baseline as an employer. It shows that you're committed to the profession. And I think personally and as an employer, it gives you a good set of skills that you can either continue in the profession or you could use them to move into the business because you've got that broad and varied view. And I think for me, also having that chartered qualification does help you stand out on a CV. But I think the key thing is that it must be supported by experience, and experience and the qualification can come in any order, but I think one reinforces the other. And I'd also want to emphasise that soft skills in stakeholder engagement are so important, along with essentially doing just a really good quality job. But I guess having really sound financials understanding, a professional audit qualifications and some experience in the right place. And I think also the kind of an ability to demonstrate potential to learn and grow. That's the golden ticket for me, and it's very, very hard to find someone as an employer with all of that. So I think I'll leave it there, and I'll hand back over to Sally.
Thank you very much, Julie, and that's really interesting. I think I'd like to invite everybody to pose questions that you have for either Julie, Jan, Bill, or obviously me. We've had some questions already submitted during the presentation, so I will start with those, but feel free to submit them as we go along. I'm listening with interest about what you were saying about the soft skills in your team, and then also obviously the qualifications. So what would you say is more important between the two? And perhaps it's a balance of the two, but how would you assess the importance of qualifications or practical experience?
I think, Sally, it is a balance. Essentially, you're looking for both, but I think the experience and the soft skills, I would expect those to come as people learn on the job. So it depends on the level. So at a more junior level, what I'm really looking for is the qualification that suggests that there's a good baseline, and then through interview process, the ability to understand whether somebody's got the potential and the appetite to develop and grow, and the professional experience comes along the way, as it were. But a mix of across the team more broadly, a mix of qualification and experience is vital.
Yes, and I think it's interesting what you were saying about the soft skills and the influencing and persuading of stakeholders. I think there'll be people on the call be interested to know, particularly in a developing function, how would you say that you gain that stakeholder trust or engagement, particularly if you're changing your audit approach?
I think first and foremost is to be really clear as to why you're actually what you're doing and actually why you're doing it, and be able to articulate that with gravitas to senior people is super important. So I would, lean on senior people in the audit team to do that. And that help can come external as well. If you don't have that, then either buy it in or permanently or temporarily. So I think there's a key thing around capability and an ability to deliver a message. But fundamentally, I think if your team can't back it up, then with a quality piece of work that makes meaningful difference to the business, therein lies the value to the business, and you must be able to demonstrate that. So I think it always comes down to people, and the partnership here is incredibly based on success. Here is incredibly based on relationships, probably more than any other business that I've worked in. All businesses say that, but it really does matter here. It goes all the way through to the shopping experience, but it goes right to the top of the board as well. So it is so fundamental. I think in terms of how you do that, you do need to be able to hone those skills and have those skills through the team. I didn't have those skills through the team at the beginning, so I almost ring-fenced pretty much everything that went out of the door in terms of our deliverables. And it's hard, it takes a lot of effort, but it was one way to get the QA up, and now that's starting to filter down through the team. Sometimes reviewing reports 15, 16 times until they're right. It's a huge effort, but it's paying dividends now. So the weight on me as a leader is much less, and the benefit of that and the kind of upskilling is now starting to filter through the team. So the business sees the team doing that, not just me, and the credibility increases across the business. And at the same time, my team feel that they're developing too.
And we've got a question here from somebody who's asked, do you prefer an internal audit for qualification over ACA or ACCA for members of your team?
It's difficult. Not really. I think I need a mix. I've got both, and I've got people who are not qualified actually as well. It doesn't really matter for me. I think if you've got both, that's amazing. But I suppose I would caveat that with the fact that good accountants are not always good auditors. And I've got some brilliant accountants in my team who are developing their audit skills, let's say, and I've got some brilliant auditors in my team who really need to brush up on their financials. So it's a mix in some and some. We need to deploy, as we work through the audit plan, we look at the team and we work out who's got the experience to lead and who can then be supporting and learn and develop on each engagement. So it's not the answer. I can't give you a binary answer. I think if I was thinking about should I do one or the other, I think one leads, the accountancy qualification is probably perceived as a much broader piece in terms of the grounding, and it's second to none in terms of giving you a very broad base. But I think there's the kind of broader practical experience skills that you get from the audit piece allows you to then take those accountancy qualifications and the knowledge forward.
And would you apply that to IT audit as well? Would CISA, for example, or IIA take priority over experience, or does the same apply, would you say?
I think it's slightly different because I think, in my experience, a broader an accountancy qualification is broader, tends to be broader than an IT qualification, and I'll probably get shot for saying that, but it's just my experience, and it might be just the candidates that I see. So for me, again, the IT qualification gives the base, but the practical experience, particularly in IT, because it's so techy, and then when we're talking to boards, they don't understand the tech, but the ability to then socialise technical information to very small sound bites of tangible information is the biggest challenge. So the the auditor qualification on top of the IT qualification would be fantastic.
Okay. And a question here that would probably be answered well by Jan is how doable is the qualification? So, i.e., how much study time is required?
In terms of the CIA qualification, we're looking at if you are an internal auditor with a few years of experience behind you, so you're not really new to the environment, I would say probably around 60 hours for Part 1 and Part 2. Part 3 is a little bit bigger, so let's double that to about 120 hours. Going on to the chartered qualification, it's a little bit bigger, so let's somewhere in the vicinity of about 90 hours per part. But absolutely very doable. If you're going to give downscales to that, I would say you can easily do each of the qualifications, take one part, study it, prepare for it, and sit your exams in 6 months. That will still give you enough time to spend time with your family and socialize, and you will have a little bit of a life as well.
I think we worked out, Jan, that it was something like 14 days full-time study.
Yes, if you're going to study 9 to 5 and give it your all, you'll probably will get through it in about 2 weeks per part.
And another question that's here in front of me is, what are the entry requirements?
For the CIA qualification, you would preferably have a degree. Any degree would do. And you would also need 2 years of experience. If you don't have a degree, then you just need 5 years of experience to be able to claim a qualification.
And what proportion of people who complete the CIA then go on to complete the full qualification?
It's very difficult to say. I don't have the stats with me, but I would say about probably between 20 and 30%.
It's quite a difficult question to answer that because there's so many different reasons why people are taking the qualification. Some it's because they want to be a career internal auditor and therefore they want to get chartered status. Others may be doing the CIA because they are in internal audit for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and they're not necessarily staying. So, you know, when we look at our stats, yes, Jan's right, it's probably at the moment about 25%. Our pool of CIA holders is growing quite enormously though, so I suspect that might change going forward. There's much more interest now in getting the full suite, as it were. But there's also lots of interest in doing more specialist qualifications. I think this came up a little bit earlier, where people sort of see the CIA as the sort of the box that they want to tick before they do something more specialist, maybe in IT audit, for example. But it's about a quarter or so and growing, I would say, in simple terms.
And a question here for Julie. What would your advice be for anyone on this call who's at the early stages of their internal audit career? What experience should they try to get and what behaviours should they try to be developing?
I would say the broadest experience possible. So for me, I would really encourage people to get a really sound grounding in the financial processes and the key, I think, the sort of baseline of the business, but also to get really heavily involved in the broader aspects of audit, so in the program assurance area and specifically into IT and data in particular, and the cyber aspects, because I think that would really stand you in good stead going forward. I mean, I'm probably tainted because I'm specifically in retail at the moment, but we've seen so many changes in our industry because of data and the way that shoppers and customers want their goods and services and the way that they want to interact, and it's very much data driven and not so personal. So and obviously to implement all of those things you need to take businesses through massive change curves. So program assurance experience, I think, and IT and cyber more broadly, I think it is where I would spend some of my time, but I would definitely not do that at the expense of understanding end-to-end processes, the fundamental operations of the business and how the money flows through those processes.
And I've got a question here for Phil and Jan around, you've mentioned in your presentation that people can join as a member without deciding to gain the qualification. So what does that bring if they join as a member? What are the benefits there?
Well, if you join as a member and you're not looking to study, the thing that would stand out most is the knowledge resources that we have. So we have a whole database of technical guidance across a whole range of topics, whether it's how to engage better with the board through to how to audit payroll. We have a bi-monthly magazine and a magazine website. So again, you know, we're looking at contemporary issues, interviews with heads of audit, just the sort of general what's going on in the profession and in the industry is covered very well in the magazine on the magazine website. Membership also then gives you access to a whole host of training and networking events. And again, you know, we try and make our conference program both strategic and sort of getting you out of your normal day-to-day routine and looking up more, but also very practical and sort of workshop focused. So, you know, tools and techniques kind of sessions on specialist areas, normally delivered by practicing heads of audit, because, you know, obviously members mostly want to hear from people who are actually doing the job rather than from academics or sort of non-practitioners. And we run conferences all over the place all the time. So we have a national conference in London. That's normally sort of 500 people or so across a couple of days. We have conferences in Scotland annually, in the southwest, in Ireland, and 9 regional committees who are organising programmes of events within their own particular territory. And we have webinars, and we have all kinds of podcasts and, you know, multi-channel kind of delivery, if you like, of internal audit knowledge is probably the simplest way to describe it. So it's a very active and vibrant community. We're just about to launch in a couple of months, actually, a new service for heads of internal audit. So that's going to be a sort of a flagship specialist service with its own website. And then soon after that, sort of through the year, we'll be looking at how we make delivery of our products and services much better. I mean, we have a good website at the moment with lots of content on it, but we'll be launching a new website at some point during the year, and just looking at how we make the whole sort of digital experience for members to get the content they need much better. So I hope I've sold it to you.
So I've got some other questions in front of me that are very specific really around the qualification. What I'm going to do is perhaps separately give those to you, Phil and Jan, and I'll come back to the people individually who've asked me them, and I'll contact you directly. So I'm going to draw the questions to a close, but I am able to follow up with people directly afterwards for anyone who has a question. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention today, and I hope you've gained a real insight into the Chartered IIA and its qualifications, but also how the profession is changing, and more importantly, how the IIA can add value to your internal audit function and your team. If you'd like to take advantage of the membership offering that Hayes has with the Chartered IIA, you can see the details recapped on the screen. Please don't feel free to hesitate to contact me. My contact details are on the screen. I'd just like to say thank you again to our speakers, Jan and Phil from the Chartered IIA, and to Julie Goodwin, Head of Audit and Risk at John Lewis. Thank you for your advice and your insights, and for everybody attending. Just a final reminder, we've recorded this session, and we'll send the recording on to all of you shortly. I think that will come early next week, but feel free to contact me in the meantime. Thank you.